Then we'll start on our gravy. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a relatively tall container, see-through is better, and take all of this juice that was in the pan, all that wine. You notice it would, like, we put in almost like 3/4 of a liter of wine, and we certainly aren't getting that much back, so it has reduced down quite a bit. So all of the juice is in there, and we're just going to let that sit for just a minute or two, and you'll notice right away that the fat starts to come up to the top. Now, today's turkey, so we want to take it, once that's settled a little bit and leaving us the fat at the top, we're going to use our baster and take some of that fat off, because if we have too much fat in it, not only is it unnecessary calories, but that's what will make your gravy separate, is if you have too much fat in it, so it can't mix in properly with whatever your thickening agent is. Personally, I prefer to use flour for a thickening agent, but regardless, it will make a big difference if you had too much fat. And remember, we had all that butter in there that was adding to the flavor, adding to the moistness of the turkey. But now we don't need it anymore. We don't need that for the gravy. So now that this juice has had a little bit of time to settle, you'll notice that a fair bit of it is fat. There's that combination of the butter plus fat that would have come off of the turkey itself. So we're just going to use that lovely little baster. Instead of putting things on, we're taking things off. Just leaving that up at the top. You can get fancy jugs that are specific for this purpose, that the spout kind of comes off of the bottom. But I find that since I've got the baster anyway, that works quite well. I think that's about as good as it's going to get. Doesn't hurt to have a little bit of fat, but you don't want that much fat in there. So then we're going to take this juice and put it in a pot. Get ready for the gravy. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to put this on a medium-high heat. We want to get this to a good boil. It's one of the things that will happen is if you find that your gravy, particularly chicken or turkey gravy, is too pale, it's because you haven't had your juices hot enough when you add your thickening agent to them. So we'll get that rolling, and while that's happening, we're going to start mixing up the thickening agent. So I have this ancient mixer that has a little star that goes in the top to help with mixing. If you don't have one of these, just take an old jar from spaghetti sauce or something like that. I'm going to take some cool water. You don't want the flour cooking just yet. So I've got about a cup of cool water there. And for this much, I'm going to add maybe half a cup of flour. And make sure you put the flour on top of the water, not the other way around. Because if you put the flour in the bottom with the water on top, you end up with glue and it doesn't want to mix. Then we're going to add in our salt and pepper. And we can always add more salt and pepper later. Salt in particular really makes a difference to a good gravy. Put our little cover in there. And making sure you've got a good tight hold on the top and give it a good shake. So you're making really runny paste out of this, I'll say. So it's just plain flour and water with a little salt and pepper is all we've got in there. And then we just wait for this to come up to a good boil. And we have our mixer at the ready. Now, whisk works very well. There's also this really cool thing. This is another Pampered Chef tool, which covers a lot of ground on the bottom of the pan. It's got some flexibility to it, so when you're going around, it scrapes a lot of stuff off the bottom, stirs well because of the openings in it, but also keeps things from sticking to the bottom of the pan. And it's coming soon to a theater near you. Now, some people like to chop up the giblets and add them to their gravy. I haven't figured out how to do that and not make it a little bit lumpy. For that matter, even just, it's really critical how well you mix this, because if you don't have it properly mixed, like if you just tried to put the flour straight in here, that's where you would get the lumps. So what my grandmother used to refer to as gravy with little dumplings in it. And that's not really what you want to have happen. Okay, so there we go. We've got a good rolling boil in this. You can see there the bubbles in there. So we have to be ready, and with our stir and our mix at the same time. I'm going to get that stirring. We're going to pour in the thickener. Then right away I'm reaching over to add some more water to this, because if this gravy gets too thick, I want to have water at the ready to thin it down a little bit. So you see how quickly that thickened up with a nice brown tone to it. And there's different ways you can thicken this. Some people like cornstarch. With cornstarch, you have to cook it for quite a while. But with flour, as soon as it comes to a boil, it's cooked and it's ready to go. So that's starting to get a little bit thick for my taste, so I'm going to thin it down just a little bit there. And that's how easy it is to make good gravy. Now you'll notice that it turns out that there's a fair bit in comparison to the size of this turkey. So the bigger the turkey, the more juice you're going to have off of here. If you have excess gravy at the end of the meal, just take it, and I have a spare set of old ice cube trays. And I freeze the gravy in ice cube trays and then pop them out and put them in a Ziploc bag. And that way I can add them to other dishes. And you'll see in another couple of episodes when we do meatloaf, how that's really handy to have some leftover gravy to put on top of your meatloaf, which under normal circumstances wouldn't have gravy of its own. So there we go. We're just going to put that down to the bare minimum. And actually, I'm probably going to turn it off for a little bit. When you do go to heat it up again, it's best to put some kind of lid on it. Otherwise, you're going to get kind of a skin on the top of it. So you want to keep your stirrer handy to stir that up. But there we go, folks. And thank you very much for joining us here at Hilltop Stovetop once again on our lesson on how to make gravy. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on the episodes about how to roast the turkey, how to carve the turkey, and how to make your side dishes, as well as about turkey stuffing.